Good evening, my friends and acquaintances. The Ranter is back for yet another one of his rambling diatribes on the news of the day. However, I'm going to spare you a long-winded video here because I really don't have much to say on this particular topic, but it still needs to be said. Now, to remind the boys and girls in the Democratic Party and in the DNC and those campaign staffers who decide to flap their mouths on anyone who has a camera to the detriment of the people that they're working for, to the presidential candidates themselves, the goal you all are supposed to be focusing on is the defeat of Donald Trump and becoming president of the United States, for some of you who are actually running for that job. Why do I need to remind you of that? Because for some reason, either some of you, collectively, individually, are fucking it up. Then it seems more like your chaos is intended to help him get reelected. You are messing up a process in this Iowa caucus that y'all has been dealing with for decades as part of this electoral process. Why the Iowa caucus is so goddamn important for the primary. Why it always is the first place to go before you go to New Hampshire and Nevada and South Carolina and etc. And unnecessarily, you're inflicting your self-inflicting wounds on yourselves by doing this nonsense. Now, what do we know about what was going on here? We don't know much. Apparently, a mishap with the app that is being used, I guess, in compiling the votes and determining who's winning, who's the delegates or whatever, that is messing up somehow. I mean, people want to bring up that this same firm was like veterans of the Clinton campaign. Fine, you know, that's a nice talking point, but I don't know how relevant that is other than to pump up the emotion of the situation. There's a few things in here that we'll say it is a terminology of hinky. One, Pete Buttigieg, before there was any results, declared victory last night. Now, I understand that each campaign actually has their own internal polling and, you know, their own way of trying to figure out which way the wind is blowing before there is, you know, the actual physical results that is presented to the public to let them know who won or not. I understand that. But to say it definitively when not a majority of precincts are out, that's kind of extraordinary. I mean, the other candidates also came out and they spoke, but they didn't speak of definitive victories or anything. I mean, Amy Klobuchar, my choice, was proud of she was able to punch high beyond her weight class, which was a, you know, I don't like that. That's a little. It continues her little happy warrior type way of going into this, where it's not, you know, gloom and doom and, you know, just kind of happy running for president. That's great. She didn't emphasize that they were winning anything. They said the numbers are looking good, which is a nice, it's just a nice, decent commentary, which other presidential candidates said more along those lines. No, not outright, oh, we won. No. And Pete Buttigieg, you know, you could try to give the benefit of the doubt that he was just enthusiastic upon how popular apparently is in Iowa. And maybe he went ahead of his skis on this without full results to fully back up the claim that he was in victory. Problem with that is that we find out from this firm that was running this app that apparently Pete Buttigieg at some point donated $40,000 plus to the engineers of this app. And he declared victory before there was results. The next day, today, he goes out again, and again he declared victory again. While 60% of the precincts were in, they showed he was ahead. And as of now, as I'm recording this at 12:43 in the morning. I'm watching a rerun of Brian Williams' 11th Hour, which comes on 11. And there, at this point, 71% of the precincts are in. And it's looking like it's neck to neck between Pete Buttigieg and Bernie Sanders. However, we're still not in the point at all of declaring victory for anyone. So here's the problem here. For him declaring victory twice, and given that he has apparently donated money to this firm, the results are in question now. How do you mess this up? This is not a secret ballot thing. This is not a voting machine thing. These are paper ballots done in the public. And you still mess this up. Are you trying to sabotage this for us? This is a serious question. I've said this repeatedly, that this election is the Democrats to lose. I said this the last time. And I'm getting to be goddamn right about it. Because, again, there's nothing Donald Trump can do to inspire anyone over the Democrats. In every poll that we've seen against generic, say my name Democrat, Donald Trump loses because we have 3 years of example of what a Donald Trump presidency is. And yet, with shit like this, I can see him getting a second term. Because of you. Democrats. And your DNC. I mean, how many theories are running wild that all this shit is happening in order to push out Bernie? You know, I was always even, well, kind of part 2 of this, and somehow it crashed on me. But as I was saying, was that I was always either or when it comes to Bernie Sanders. Last time around, I voted for him in the primary. I just simply because I liked him and I felt the same buzz as other people did for him. I didn't mind when Hillary won, and I didn't mind supporting Hillary. With Bernie, at the time, I always thought my one drawback with him was he was always one note, one issue, income inequality. And, you know, it seemed that every topic always funneled back down to income inequality when it came to him. And any other topic that came up that was a serious question, he seemed to have a deer in the headlight look. He doesn't really do that anymore, which I'm glad. So, in this instance, I don't mind the idea of Bernie getting in as a nominee. My annoyance with this whole situation is that the theory that this whole debacle is just a way of pushing Bernie and his undeniable popularity to the side and try to substitute him with somebody else. And that type of bullshit infighting is not what we need now. We are not in a position, not in a comfortable position, I might add, for us to screw with the voters who are going to vote for the Democrat who's going to be the nominee. And if the majority of enthusiasm is going to Bernie Sanders, instead of trying to sabotage him out of the race, maybe, just maybe, you should embrace him. Give him the support. I mean, we hear about that overheard call that John Kerry was having that had to become news of his private conversation that, the one thing that would get him into the 2020 race was if it came down to Bernie Sanders approaching the nomination, and Bernie would take down the Democratic Party. How? How fearful are all you people on Bernie Sanders because of his concept of socialism? I mean, his terminology is being a democratic socialist, but I guess that word is too associated with years gone by that people are already thinking of Trump ads against Bernie Sanders where he'll say the word socialist, and all of a sudden we're seeing the Red Army marching down Red Square with nuclear weapons, on parade because socialism is also communism. I mean, no, no, it's not. I don't know how far in the spectrum of socialism Bernie Sanders is compared to other countries that actually do have strong socialism to it. But in almost the same way as the Republican Party wants to keep its liver-spotted white hand on the grip of power, so does the Democrats want to keep the grip of power on their own party. Now, I understand the concept of where the establishment is coming from in certain senses. If you watch any of my videos, you know that I am a champion of compromise. You don't go far left immediately. You don't jump from where we are now down to the left. It's that hard without incremental things happening between now and then till we get to that point. Because again, you have to hate to break it to people, but not everyone is liberal, not everyone is conservative, but not everybody is down the middle. I used to have a concept where when you talk about politics, when you talk about the people who get on the mics and talk about their policies or advocate for their shoot the moon goals, their pipe dreams of what they want, one way or another. And it's always the hard left or the hard right is the ones that get on the camera, get on the microphone, and speak with passion of what they want and what they oppose from the other side. But who's the people that actually does the work? The people down the middle. The people down the middle that make the compromises between the left and the right. They're trying to grow the consensus that tries to make the progress. Because again, we are not a one ideology, one party system. To have policy, to have true progress, it takes that bipartisan support. And obviously we're not anywhere near that. But to go far left, when you don't have that support structure, that middle that can make the compromises to get you there, then you are no different than the all or nothing the right does when it's in power than the left does when it's in power. There's so many things that could be done that are good that I totally agree with. But if you do not have a consensus with the majority of the people that can whip up the politicians to go to that point of view, unless they receive the detriment of not getting their support and not getting their vote, and therefore they could be leaving office, then things don't happen. I had came up with a concept, I think the last video, where I wondered if there were a segment of this DNC or the donor class that wants President Trump still in office so they can use him as a foil to fundraise against him and to make the money against him. I wonder, because it is what's going on in Iowa does lend itself to conspiracy theories. Certainly there's plenty flying around that this is a clandestine effort to cut Bernie out. But What if there is some people who see Trump in office, see all the horrible things that he does, so they can make money off of that fear, that hostility towards him. Instead of fixing the problem or solving the problem, just complain about the problem and make money off the problem. Seems to be a rather Cold War-esque situation that we've always seen in various other things that happen, especially with our foreign policy. Yesterday, when I did my last video, I expressed how I was feeling down. I was feeling kind of depressed and feeling kind of hopeless of this whole situation. Because I was feeling like, each one of our little idealisms that we thought about our government in our country are just illusions. There's nothing, it's like there's nothing left to venerate. And if people are so hell-bent on this guy being president, no matter what he does, and I'm talking about people in power, these senators and congressmen, these people who were sycophants to Trump, who debase themselves for Trump, who reverse themselves for what they have said in the past and what they believed in the past in order to be a cheerleader of this guy. As I mentioned the last time around, 3 senators who were voting no on witnesses agreed that the Democrats made their case, that the things that they were doing were impeachable, and that they were inappropriate and they were wrong. They just couldn't bring themselves to vote in witnesses, which would lend itself to a fair trial process that they could still acquit him over and actually be better off in the long run and give them cover to do so. But they didn't do that. And you feel bad about that, and then you feel bad of how the Democrats and the DNC is trying to screw over Bernie, or at least that's perception. And I feel that problem, that hopelessness about it, not just because it's Bernie Sanders, not because of that, it's because it gives you the example that the eye is off the ball here. That we are needed to be in a place of unity, to see with a collective consensus that on the other side of that ballot is the President of the United States, who was disqualified of that position, unqualified of that position, has made a mockery of that position, and people are so inspired by his words and his antics and his behavior that their words and their antics and their behavior is now amplified. People who thought things that they never said or never acted upon because they felt shame for these horrible things that were probably in their head, that they never admitted to it except for a small circle of friends who are like-minded people. Now look at a president who are saying exactly the same things that they're thinking about, demonizing people that they down deep disliked, and now are being condoned to hate because their patron hates them. And as I said, there are weak-minded people out there who can commit violence over this, who have committed violence or attempted to commit violence, all because of the rhetoric that Trump has said or tweeted or done at his rallies, or the policies that he tries to enact. No, it's disheartening to hear when people say that the Democrats are just handing this election over to this president. It's disheartening to hear where their party's agenda seems to be more important than the goal here to defeat Donald Trump and to defeat the aura of him that allows people to feel condoned to commit their own acts of hate and ugliness because the president is saying this stuff and he's doing this stuff and they're just making America great again. We find out in the past day that someone sent a threat into Adam Schiff because he was watching Fox News and he was watching the impeachment. Should we add that to the list of people who were inspired because of the loose lip recklessness of this president? I don't know. I know that the Democrat National Committee needs to cut the shit. That if Bernie Sanders turns out to be the one that the people want, don't jerk the scales. Don't try to shove him out the door over the case of another anointed person that you'd rather have. This is not the election to fuck around, and y'all are fucking around. If it's I don't know. I just sort of lost my train of thought here. If Bernie Sanders has the momentum, has the army behind him of loyal people who've been loyal to him for 4 years, I don't know how you can discount the amazing loyalty that he inspires in the people that support him, that supported him from 2016 to 2020, that are still there, that are growing. And you want to throw that away because he's too socialist? I'm sorry, because it's just rolling in my head, and I have to like remind people of certain things. People who think he goes too far to the left. Even if he becomes president of the United States, that doesn't mean that all these fearful far left agenda things that the Democrats are somehow scared of, that he's going to bring the party down, is going to occur. George W. Bush, two-term Republican president of the United States, got us into the Iraq War and a war in Afghanistan, which was, you can find some justification because of 9/11, but got us into these situations and promoted a conservative agenda domestically, right? Now, he was pro-life, and people were so fearful of a president who was pro-life and with a pro-life majority Republican party at his back, controlling partially the House and the Senate at the time. He didn't do anything to destroy the right to choose. I mean, outside of the rhetoric and certain moves that was done, there wasn't anything to kill it. There wasn't too much of a far-right agenda that was happening that was going to destroy this country. It pissed us off royally, for those of us who didn't appreciate him and didn't vote for him and didn't like his policies. I would take 4 more years of George W. Bush over Donald Trump any day. And despite how I opposed him and I didn't vote for him, I will say more readily that George W. Bush was my president than Donald Trump, who you have to begrudgingly say, yeah, he's your president. Yeah, okay. But you have to have the aura of being a president, and Trump don't have that. So if Bernie Sanders becomes president, you think that we're just going to go off the rails to the left? That is suddenly going to be, Red Square down the mall? I mean, this 2020, this communistic fear-mongering bullshit is passé by 20, 30 years. I don't know about you, but I would be entertained at the idea if Trump had the balls to actually do a debate, because he's been saying, I don't know if I want to do a debate because it's not fair. Moderators won't be fair to me. Because that's a brave president. That's a brave macho activist macho president to be fearful. Maybe Megyn Kelly was there and he'll have to hide from a Republican debate. Since he won't even do that with his two Republican rivals, Joe Walsh and Bill Weld, and that he needs his party to push them out of consideration because he think that's too scary to actually fight for the position that you hold. But there that is. But that tickle me if they had a debate and Trump would flap off on the gums of something weird, and Bernie Sanders gives him that side eye. It's like, what are you talking about? I would love that. I think that would be like a meme that would last the centuries. But again, it doesn't matter really who the nominee is. Because here's the problem, what's going on in Iowa is that when you're all fucking this up, this simple process of ballot, written in, counting, in a public setting, where there shouldn't be any ambiguity, but somehow magically there is, you've handed Trump what he always wanted. A justifiable narrative. So, from this moment on, if this shit continues to persist, Trump can always go into his pocket. If there's any situation that comes up between now and election day, even if he happens to lose the election, he can go, well, the thing's rigged. The thing's rigged. Look what happened in Iowa. Look what happened in Iowa. They're messing with the system. They're jerking with the system. It's not being fair. And he said that shit in 2016. He was whining about that in the last few months of the election. He even complained about the Electoral College, that wasn't fair, until he won by the Electoral College, since he lost the popular vote by 2 or 3 million. So do you not think that he will bring up Iowa, or will bring up any other situation that is resembling Iowa, to justify him saying that the election that would bring him down is not valid? That he would contest it? That he would not acknowledge that he lost fairly and squarely? And you think there won't be anyone rallying around him? Like any of these fucking politicians who've already debased themselves and whose justification for voting for no witnesses, even though they believe that he's done impeachable things, is all laughable? You don't think there's going to be people around? There are already people saying that because of all the stress that he was under, that he should have a third term. I swear to God, there are people in this government who have went all in on Trump to the point that they're hoping and praying he goes dictator. Because if he doesn't, and he's voted out, and there's a new president there, then all their work to being sycophants for him, that all goes away. And people will remember how they did all they could to protect this guy. Then they'll be out of a job. They'll be out of a career. They won't be able to find work. Like you see any of Trump's former people who are having a hard time finding employment because they spend too much time lying for him, and no one wants to pick them up. Stuff like that. So Democrats, the NC, you interest groups, your presidential campaigns, and you presidential candidates, cut the shit. If you're gonna do your infighting, do it for the basic, obvious reasons, the policy, the normal stuff. Try to differentiate you with your other candidate who's trying to say that you're better than that other candidate. That's fine. That's what we expect. But beyond that, stop trying to sabotage each other. Focus is President Donald Trump. He's president. This guy is president. Any one of you, from Biden to Bernie to Buttigieg to Klobuchar to Warren to Tulsi Gabbard to Yang, any one of you is a viable person. I don't want to hear another goddamn word about electability. That piece of shit is a president of the United States. You are all electable. No one can tell you otherwise. Compared to that, there's no reason that any of you, are not electable. None. Don't buy that. Don't buy that from the political agents and operatives that try to sell that to the people that someone is not electable. Don't buy that from the media, who apparently also wants to be in on the sabotaging of us winning the presidency, because they're going all in on their anti-Bernie too. Now, this is not, I'm not trying to be like completely pro-Bernie here, because I just want him to be as equal to everybody else. There is nothing wrong with Bernie Sanders. I'm not going to demonize the other Democratic candidates, because any one of them can be the nominee. But the media has a hand in this too. The media is unnecessarily sowing doubt. There is more doubt towards Joe Biden than there is for Bernie Sanders. Now, I've always been pro with Biden, because I don't jump on the wagon of hating too much. I mean, I have enough time dealing with Trump to go on and hate people on the other side of the aisle. I don't put Biden in my top 3 choices, because he is in decline. He is. What he wants to do, what his platform is us going back to the Obama years. The Obama years is gone. We can't go backwards. We can't reminisce too much of the past. We have to move forward. Post-Trump, not pre-Trump. I'm not opposed to the idea of them investigating Joe Biden or Hunter Biden and Burisma. You know, people might claim, and I do. My thing was I didn't want it tied into the impeachment, because it has nothing to do with impeachment. For what Trump was doing was acts on his own. Because, and if you want to say it's because of it, then yeah, for him to dig up dirt on a political rival, that's fine. But if you feel that he's done something wrong, then fine, investigate him. The only people that are afraid of investigation is those that have something fearful to hide. And as far as the investigative capabilities that we've seen so far, as we spent, nearly a decade on the Republican Party, both in the House and the Senate, and using the FBI of investigating Hillary Clinton. Yeah, how'd that go? So, fine, investigate Joe Biden. And if you don't investigate Joe Biden, Ms. Lindsey Graham, as you said you were going to do after the impeachment was done, if that suddenly slips your mind, then I know, like I said last time in the video, then I know it was all political and it was all bullshit, and you didn't really mean that there needed to be an investigation. The same way as that they just wanted an announcement from Ukraine that there's an investigation and not an actual investigation, because that was all bullshit, just because it was 2019, 2020, it's election time. But I digress. But beyond that, anyone who's going to be the nominee The reason why I'm going to back that person is the other side is Donald Trump. So it could be President Tulsi Gabbard, which I'm not in favor of, but I will vote for, and I will support her, and I will back her, and she's a nominee. It's Elizabeth Warren. I'm not for her. She's being way too flaky lately on her policies, and too many of her skeletons that are coming out of the closet that she can't explain at the moment. But she's a nominee. I'll vote for her and I'll support her. Amy Klobuchar was one of my top 3 picks, but she's been having trouble answering questions of her own skeletons in her past lately, which makes me believe that she's not ready for prime time. Pete Buttigieg is sabotaging himself with this bullshit. And he also has a few issues that he needs to clamp down, or he's not going to make it. I said this on social media in terms of this Iowa thing. What all the candidates need to do, if they want to make this not an issue that Donald Trump is going to take a hammer and smash people with every day, from Twitter to the election on down for everything, is that the presidential candidates en masse should come together and say, this is a mess. And this is not what we want to represent the Democratic Party. It certainly don't want to represent our campaigns. So we formally ask the Democratic National Convention Committee to do a recount of the caucus in Iowa. Because we want a righteous winner. And whoever wins this, because we're still at 71%, according to what was 11 plus o'clock, because it's still a refund, it's still a replay. The results are tainted. It's tainted with a cloud of ambiguity, with uncertainty. Too much shit has gone down that is not being explained. There were people, when they couldn't get the results in the normal way, they tried calling in, and they would be on hold for hours. There was something that happened at former Senator Claire McCaskill, who is now a contributor to MSN. She was telling a story that she was on the phone with one of these guys working the phone bank in the boiler room for the Iowa Caucus, and that they were told that during the first round, those candidates that were not viable, that couldn't go forward, was suddenly magically viable in the second round. That's against the rules. That's kind of amazing. And that kind of was like thrown over, that was kind of pushed aside. That is a mess. And if the presidential candidates don't do this, where they come together collectively and demand a recount of this, then whatever results, including Bernie winning, because this is becoming a kind of a neck and neck thing between Bernie and Buttigieg. Whoever wins this, there's going to be an asterisk. There's going to be uncertainty, and it could be invalid. And if you're not going to do that, it's more likely you're not going to do that because, at max a dozen people that watch this. But if you're not going to do that, then you're going to give Donald Trump every reason to use this Iowa bullshit and anything that is like Iowa afterwards as a justification to say the system is rigged, that they're not playing fair, that they're screwing with people, they're screwing people over, and how much of that he says is going to be wrong, or how much of that is going to be right. Now, Also, the State of the Union happened, and I was at work, so I didn't watch it. I was spared the bragging and the lying and the stunts and the feel-good moments. And we'll give credit to credit is due to those for him reuniting the family with their with the military family member, husband and father. That's cool. That was cool. Any president would have done it, but somehow magnanimously Super Trump did that. This happened a lot in social State of the Union, so let's not go overboard. Giving the Medal of Freedom to Rush Limbaugh because he has cancer. Um, you know, um, I've been saying on social media not to trash Rush Limbaugh because he has cancer, not wish him death or any of that bullshit. Come on, folks. Come on, be better than that. I mean, you hate him all you want, but you don't wish anyone cancer. Ever. Because that doesn't say anything about them, that says something about you. My answer to it? Thoughts and prayers. How's that feel good moment? But in between that, all the bragging for stuff that he doesn't necessarily directly have anything to do with, but since he was sitting in the chair while these things were happening, I don't have too much to say about I don't have too much to say about the State of the Union. My only thing about the State of the Union that I will say is much love to the Madam. Much love to Madam Speaker. Alright, as I said, kind of a short one. Kind of between the two parts. Y'all have a good night. I'll see you later.